service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has discussed with his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas the ongoing dangerous aggressions committed by the Israeli forces in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And dozens of Palestinians have been killed and wounded in Israeli air attack on Jabalia refugee camp, and the latest death toll stands at 560 Palestinians. And Palestine's permanent observer to the UN, Riyad Mansour, urged the international community not to let Israel double down on its terrible choices. And those were the major developments. Now, the full news edition. Good afternoon. Dozens of Palestinians have been killed and wounded in Israeli air raids attack on Jabalia refugee camp. The intense bombardment has so far displaced more than 120,000 people in the besieged Palestinian enclave. And the latest death toll stands at 560 Palestinians in Gaza, according to health officials. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has discussed with his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas the ongoing dangerous aggressions committed by the Israeli forces in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. In a phone conversation, President Tebboune reiterated Algeria's full solidarity, people and government, with the Palestinian brotherly people. He told his Palestinian counterpart that the ongoing escalation reminds everybody that equal peace will not be achieved unless Palestine establishes its independent state with Al-Quds as capital in accordance with international legality and Arab peace initiatives. And meanwhile, Algerian diplomacy chief Ahmed Attaf has said that Algeria will not stop supporting just causes, notably the right of the Palestinian people to establish an independent state with Al-Quds as capital.
كما تؤكد الجزائر أنها لن تتخلى.
Algeria will not stop supporting just causes, at the top of them the right of the Palestinian people to establish an independent state with Al-Quds as its capital. The ongoing tragic situation prevailing in the region is the outcome of denying the Palestinians legitimate right that is neither negotiable nor forgettable. The Palestinian people lost hope given that an entire generation has neither heard nor even read about or seen a serious peace process that tangibly tries to spare them the iniquity and injustice and implement what was stipulated by international legality in terms of national and legitimate rights.
That was a statement of the Algerian diplomacy chief on the occasion of the National Diplomacy Day. And Palestinian Health Minister Maya Lakila called on the international community to take urgent action to curb the Israeli occupation aggression against medical centers, ambulances and crews in the Gaza Strip. The minister accused the Israeli occupation in a statement of deliberately bombing hospitals and ambulances and killing and injuring crews, which she stressed is a major and clear violation of all international laws and conventions. Meanwhile, an Israeli warplane today attacked an ambulance northwest of Gaza, destroying the ambulance and wounding its crew and the patient it was transporting. 560 Palestinians have lost their lives during the ongoing Israeli aggression against the people of Gaza. Today, dozens of people were killed, all civilians, in a new Israeli massacre when Israel warplanes fired missiles at a market and a mosque in Shati and Jabalia refugee camps in the north of the Gaza Strip. He said the warplanes fired several missiles at a mosque in the center of Shati refugee camp west of the Gaza city, killing and wounding a number of people and causing heavy destruction to homes in the area as well as the infrastructure. And the ambassador of the State of Palestine to Algiers, Faiz Abu Aita, affirmed that the resistance of the Palestinian people against the Zionist entity is a legitimate right until victory and independence.
75 years since the Nakba, or Palestinian catastrophe, and the successive Israeli governments kept turning deaf ear to all attempts of a solution in the region to find peace and grant the Palestinian people their rights. Israel rejected all Arab and international calls and initiatives and kept its policy of aggression and expansion. Thus, Israel is the only entity that should assume the consequences of this dangerous escalation. The aggression will keep going, but the Palestinian people insist on continuing their legitimate fight until achieving their right of return, unity, and the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with Al-Quds as its capital.
The ambassador of the State of Palestine also hailed Algeria's constant support to the right of the Palestinian people to protection, peace and independence.
Algeria is the only country that does not wait for an Israeli crime to denounce or condemn. Algeria says and does. She stands by the Palestinian people politically, financially, nationally, mentally, culturally, and at all levels. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune recently took the highest international stage to warn the world against the continuity of this occupation in the Palestinian territories and called for granting the Palestinian people their full rights and called on the international community to hold a General Assembly to fully recognize the Palestinian state. I think if the world listened to the voice of wisdom and truth that was expressed by President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, it would have spared the Palestinian people and the entire region all the repercussions caused by the Zionist army, which is fighting an armless population in the Palestinian territories.
Let's know that the statement of the Palestinian ambassador to Algiers came on the occasion of Algeria's National Diplomacy Day and amid the ongoing Israeli aggression in Palestinian territories. And Russian diplomacy chief Sergei Lavrov said Russia and the Arab League will work to stop the bloodshed caused by the recent escalation between Palestine and Israel. Ahmed Abul-Ghait assured him that the Arab League rejected the violence on both sides, calling for a just resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Meanwhile, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said the establishment of an independent state and a geographically integrated Palestinian state based on 1967 borders with Jerusalem as capital could not be delayed any longer. President Erdogan said lasting peace in the Middle East is only possible through a final settlement of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. He said Turkey is ready to do its part to stop the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and reduce the tensions that escalated on Saturday. The Chinese government, for its part, condemned the actions harming civilians, stressing that China is very concerned about the continued escalation of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The United Nations Security Council has met behind closed doors in an emergency session amid the war between Israel and Gaza, but failed to achieve the unanimity needed for a joint statement. Jabal Salmani.
The Council met for about 90 minutes and heard a briefing from the UN Middle East Peace Envoy Tor Wensland. Palestine's permanent observer to the UN, Riyad Mansour, urged the international community not to let Israel double down on its terrible choices, but to instead encourage it to change course and remind it that there is a path to peace where neither Palestinians nor Israelis are killed. No statement was agreed by council members during the meeting. Mansour lamented that history for some media and politicians starts when Israelis are killed, stressing that Palestinian people have endured one deadly year after another. He said Palestinian people came to the Security Council month after month warning of the consequences of Israeli impunity and international inaction. The Palestinian people have chosen the peaceful route, he said, adding that it is incumbent upon the world to support this choice. He said Israel now tries to justify yet another assault by the same faulty premise, stressing that no one should say or do anything to encourage it down this path by giving the well-known excuse of Israel's right to defend itself. He said this excuse will be interpreted by Israel as license to kill, adding that hundreds of Palestinians have been killed already in a day, including children, some barely a few months old. He said that killing entire Palestinian families in their sleep will not bring security nor advance peace, while Israel has long maintained the siege of Gaza.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad has celebrated the National Day of Algerian Diplomacy, coinciding with the date of Algeria's accession to the United Nations Organization on the 8th of October 1962, under the theme "And Changing Positions in Support of Just Causes." Gemma Selmanigan.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, supervised the festivities of the ceremony in the presence of the President of the International Association of Friends of the Revolution, the Mujahid Noordin Judi, in addition to the representatives of the diplomatic corps and the international and regional organizations accredited in Algeria, ministry staff and executives, members of parliament, historians and researchers. In his speech on this occasion, Mr. Attaf stated that the National Diplomacy Day coincides with a memorable date for all Algerians, that of Algeria's accession to the UN as a fully fledged member state and as a sovereign state which has regained her independence and sovereignty, following immense sacrifices engraved in gold letters on the record of the history of humanity.
This historic milestone, which marks Algeria's return to the international stage at the end of a dark colonial night, also marked the beginning of our country's commitment when it joined this international organization. This commitment is to contribute actively to the promotion of the values, principles and objectives for which the UN was created, in order to establish security and stability and to achieve development and well-being for all, without exclusion or discrimination of any kind.
He said that the Algerian diplomacy is recognized for the real contributions it has made under crucial conditions and at decisive stages in the history of the UN organization.
And the El Jaish magazine said Algeria will always remain faithful to its firm principles and its struggle for a world of peace and security, and for the enshrinement of the right of the peoples to freedom, independence and sovereignty over their territory. Gemma Selmani tells us more.
The October issue of El Jaish magazine, entitled "For a Multipolar World," stated that for more than 60 years, Algeria has stood out on the international scene by its constant and principled positions aimed at implementing the establishment of peace and security in a multipolar world based on cooperation, non-interference in the internal affairs of states, and the right of occupied peoples to self-determination, as well as the rejection of the use of force or threat in the resolution of international crises and disputes. In this context, El Jaish recalled Algeria's election as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, describing this achievement a historic opportunity to mobilize support for the triumph of just causes and defend the rights of peoples fighting for their freedom, in particular the Palestinian and Sahrawi peoples. This will require, noted the same source, efforts aimed at the adoption of a resolution that would strengthen the two-state solution and for the definitive ending of the occupation of the last colony in Africa, without forgetting its commitment to peaceful resolutions and favoring the path of dialogue in Libya, Mali, Niger, Sudan, and other countries on the African continent. In this respect, the editorial noted that Algeria was elected thanks to its brilliant diplomatic record, which this month of October marks the 61st anniversary of its accession to the United Nations. El Jaish also pointed out that the designation of this date as National Diplomacy Day came in recognition of the painstaking efforts made by our diplomacy since our glorious and triumphant liberation revolution, and to highlight its militant record, its rich experience, as well as our country's honorable positions on various regional and international issues. The editorial recalled that on the same path taken by late President Houari Boumediene, who made a historic speech to the special session of the United Nations General Assembly in April 1974, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, in a comprehensive address to the 78th session of the General Assembly of the United Nations on the 19th of September 2023, called for the establishment of a new New World Order, guaranteeing equality and cooperation between nations capable of contributing to the advent of a world where security, progress and prosperity prevail. On this occasion, he reaffirmed Algiers' position calling for the reform of the Security Council in accordance with an integrated approach, ensuring more transparent representation that allows the countries of the world, including developing countries, to make their voices heard and thus put an end to the historical injustice that has affected the African continent.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and that's it for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to our economic program presented by Said Bouazi.
Hi and welcome to our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. First in the news, Algeria and the European Union have agreed at the meeting of the high-level political dialogue in the field of energy on a new cooperation program to support the development of renewable energies worth 15 million euros, according to a joint communiqué issued Thursday by the Ministry of Energy and Mines. This cooperation program, based on the very positive results of the Taqa Nadifa Clean Energy project, was announced at the end of the fifth meeting held in Brussels on Thursday under the co-presidency of the Commissioner for Energy of the European Union Commission, Kadri Simpson, and the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab. The CEO of the Sonelgaz Group, Mourad Adjel, has received the CEO of the Tunisian Company of Electricity and Gas, STEG, Faisal Tarifa, with whom he discussed ways and means of strengthening cooperation between the two companies in the fields of electricity transmission and distribution, according to a Sonelgaz Group press release. The meeting, held in the presence of a number of senior executives, was one of a series of meetings held by Sonelgaz with a view to developing its foreign partnerships, particularly in Africa. The CEO of the Sonelgaz Group, Mourad Adjel, has met with the managing director of the Niger electricity company Nigelec, Fatih Abarshi, and the company's general secretary Arzika Mahamadou to discuss ways of supporting Niger's electricity production capacity, according to a press release from the group. During the meeting, the means of supporting Niger's electricity production capacity were examined, taking into account Sonelgaz's experience and financial and human capacities, particularly in terms of electricity production and training. The National Waste Agency, AND, has signed a partnership agreement with the Algerian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, CACI, to strengthen cooperation, notably in supporting economic operators in environmental and waste management matters. The agreement covers the joint organization of the 7th edition of the Revade International Waste Recovery and Recycling Exhibition, scheduled to take place from the 27th to the 30th of November at the Palace of Exhibitions here in Algiers, under the theme When Waste Becomes Wealth. In more Algerian economic news, the Minister of Finance, Laziz Faid, has said that the measures taken by the public authorities, notably by ensuring an abundance of raw materials and by regulating and subsidizing prices, will help reduce the rate of inflation, which has been falling steadily for several months. During a session at the National People's Assembly, APN, the Minister stated in response to questions from MPs concerning the draft amending finance law for 2023 that the average increase in prices reached 9.7% in July, pointing out that since last May, the consumer price index has seen a successive monthly fall. The 22nd session of the Grand Algerian-Tunisian Joint Cooperation Commission, which met in Algiers on Wednesday, resulted in the signing of 26 agreements between Algeria and Tunisia, covering several sectors. The signing ceremony took place at the end of the Commission's proceedings in the presence of Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman, the head of the Tunisian government Ahmed Hashani, and members of the government of both countries. The number of projects registered with the Algerian Investment Promotion Agency API on 30th September this year had reached more than 3,700 according to the agency's Director General Omar Rikesh. These investments are spread across the sectors of industry, public works and construction, transport, agriculture, fishing and aquaculture, as well as services, tourism and health, he added, underlining that these investments are registered by local and foreign operators. And to wind up our program, the Minister of Housing, Urban Planning and the City, Mohamed Taraq Belaribi, has expressed in a statement to the press on the sidelines of the meeting of the Board of Directors of the Pan-African Real Estate Financing Institution, Shelter Afrique, Algeria's readiness to share its experience with African partners and to benefit from their experience in the field of housing. After noting the high level of Algerian experience in the housing sector, the Minister said that there was a demand to share Algeria's experience in all housing formulas at African level. And with this we come to the end of our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. Goodbye.
Hello and good to have you with us in this new edition of Inspiring Figures. Today we'll shed light on the only person to win a Nobel Prize for both chemistry and physics. Marie Curie was a Polish scientist who made groundbreaking work in the field of radioactivity, enabling radioactive isotopes to be isolated for the first time. During the First World War, Curie developed the practical use of X-rays. She also discovered two new elements, polonium and radium. Her pioneering scientific work was made more remarkable because of the discrimination which existed against women in science at the time. She was the first female professor at the University of Paris and broke down many barriers for women in science. Marie Curie said, quote, "Humanity needs practical men who get the most out of their work and without forgetting the general good safeguard their own interests. But humanity also needs dreamers, for whom the disinterested development of an enterprise is so captivating that it becomes impossible for them to develop their care to their own material profit." End of quote. Maria Sklodowska was born in 1867 in Warsaw, Poland. She was the youngest of 5 children and was brought up in a poor but well-educated family. Maria excelled in her studies and won many prizes. At an early age, she became committed to the ideal of Polish independence from Russia, who at the time were ruling Poland with an iron fist, and in particular making life difficult for intellectuals. She yearned to be able to teach fellow Polish women, who were mostly condemned to zero education. Unusually for women at the time, Maria took an interest in chemistry and biology. Since opportunities in Poland for further study was limited, Maria went to Paris, where after working as a governess, she was able to study at the Sorbonne, Paris. Struggling to learn in French, Maria threw herself into her studies, leading a life dedicated to education and improving her scientific knowledge. She went on to get a degree in physics and finished top in her school. She later got a degree in maths, finishing second in her school year. Curie had a remarkable willingness for hard work. She said, quote, "Life is not easy for any of us, but what of that? We must have perseverance and above all confidence in ourselves. We must believe that we are gifted for something, and that this thing, at whatever cost, must be attained." End of quote. It was in Paris that she met Pierre Curie, who was then chief of the laboratory at the School of Physics and Chemistry. He was a renowned chemist who had conducted many experiments on crystals and electronics. Pierre asked young Maria to marry him. Maria initially refused, but after persistence from Pierre, she relented. Until Pierre's untimely death in 1906, the two became inseparable. In addition to cooperation on work, they spent much leisure time cycling and traveling around Europe together. Now let's talk about Marie Curie's work on radioactivity. Marie Curie pursued studies in radioactivity in 1898. This led to the discovery of two new elements, one of which she named polonium, after her home country. There then followed 4 years of extensive study into the properties of radium. Using dumped uranium tailings from a nearby mine, very slowly and with painstaking efforts, they were able to extract a decigram of radium. Radium was discovered to have remarkable impacts. In testing the product, Marie suffered burns from the rays. It was from this discovery of radium and its properties that the science of radiation was able to develop. It was found that radium had the power to burn away diseased cells in the body. Initially, this early form of radiotherapy was called Curie therapy. The Curies agreed to give away their secret freely. They did not wish to patent such a valuable element. The element was soon in high demand, and it began industrial scale production. For their discovery, they were awarded the Davy Medal and the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903. Marie Curie was the first woman to be awarded a Nobel Prize. In 1906, Pierre was killed in a road accident, leaving Marie to look after the laboratory and her two children. Her two children were Irène Joliot-Curie and Ève Curie. Irène won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1935, jointly with her husband. In 1911, she was awarded a second Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the discovery of actinium and further studies on radium and polonium. The success of Marie Curie also brought considerable hostility, criticism, and suspicion from a male-dominated science world. She suffered from the malicious rumors and accusations that were spread amongst jealous colleagues. The onset of the World War I in 1914 led to Marie Curie dedicating her time to the installation of X-ray machines in hospitals. Marie understood that X-ray machines would be able to locate shrapnel, enabling better treatment for soldiers. By the end of the First World War, over 1 million soldiers had been examined by her X-ray units. At the end of the First World War, she returned to the Institute of Radium in Paris. She also published a book, Radiology in War, in 1919, which encompassed her great ideas on science. Curie was also proud to participate in the newly formed League of Nations through joining the International Commission for Intellectual Cooperation in August 1922. Marie Curie was known for her modest and frugal lifestyle. She asked any financial prizes to be given to research bodies rather than herself. During the First World War, she offered her Nobel Prizes to the French Treasury. Marie Curie died in 1934 from cancer. It was an unfortunate side effect of her own groundbreaking studies into radiation, which were to help so many people. Marie Curie pushed back many frontiers in science and at the same time set a new bar for female academic and scientific achievement. Her discovery of radium enabled Ernest Rutherford to investigate the structure of the atom, and it provided the framework for radiotherapy for cancer. Marie Curie also played a leading role in redefining women's role in society and science. Well, with this, we come to the end of today's program. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.